Welcome to the Precious Metals Precious You podcast, sharing advice and insights into wealth, wisdom and prosperity. Learn from industry experts on how to secure your financial freedom. Expand your knowledge about precious metals. Take control of your wealth with a self-managed super fund. Empower yourself to become the best version of you. It's all about wealth, wisdom and prosperity. Welcome to the Precious Metals Precious You podcast. It's so great to see you. I've got a very special guest today. It is actually Brian Paynes, who's the co-founder of one of the most trusted bullion dealers in Australia, As Good as Gold Australia. So I'm going to welcome Brian in. We're going to have a fantastic conversation, lots of insights that he will share during his journey of precious metals. So welcome to you, Brian. There you go. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Carmel.
Thank you so much for your time. It's absolutely fabulous to see you. I know that you're a very busy man. You look after a lot of clients Australia-wide. So as I mentioned in the introduction, As Good as Gold Australia is the third largest, fastest growing bullion dealer in Australia. And by bullion, obviously, it's gold and silver, real money, which is exactly what we're going to be talking about on this podcast. But I just was wondering if we could actually start a little about you, Brian. I'm curious to know, you have been in business for a very long time. What made you decide to actually establish a bullion company in Australia?
It does go back a long way because people may not know it, but I've just had my 70th birthday last year, and
Happy birthday.
The years are creeping by. But maybe to answer the question, we got to go back to after I left school. I did not do any university degrees. In fact, I went straight in and did a trades position with my father, who started an engineering business supplying parts to the automotive industry. And I've got a couple of these left, but hopefully the people can see this. But it's a brochure of about 8 to 10 pages, and it gives you pretty well at that point of time a good array of products that the automotive industry used in the production of making a motor car. So just an example, we did not make parts of the motor car like a boot lid or a door panel. We made parts that help make those parts. So if that makes a lot of sense. So we actually sold to the tooling industry. From the tooling industry, tools would be made to press out the door panels, car panels, and things like that. So that was in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, a little bit into the 2000s. But we had a very thriving business. We had up to 75 people that we employed. It basically went like this. We supplied to the South Australians, then to the Australians, then to the overseas markets. So due to the overseas markets, I mean, that was a different kettle of fish. We had to get the numbers right. We had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars back in the 80s and 90s, hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to buy machines to keep up with the volume. Then, of course, the big change or big challenge that we had was in the mid 1990s, and that was basically because South Korea became a competitor. Up till this point of time, let's say early 90s, you never heard of the automotive coming from South Korea, but you obviously had the Japanese. The Japanese had a very big world market. The Americans did, the English did, and we supplied to all those countries. Right? So towards the end of our era. But when South Korea came on board, it was costs. It was nothing but quality, although everything about quality we had in place. It wasn't about marketing. It was always about cost. So what I mean by that is the exchange rate of the dollar, our dollar, to the Korean won was out of place as far as we were concerned. So what happened was we had to be competitive, and that meant we had to come down 30% in price. Now, not many people would know, but you can come down 5, maybe 10 if you really stretch hard. 10% I'm talking about. And to do that, you just need greater volumes. So your automation becomes bigger. But 30%, no, it's not going to happen. So we asked a number of automotive people, the Ford Motor companies, the Mitsubishi companies, and they basically said, well, they're producing at these costs, and you're going to have to compete or not compete. At this stage, we were competing with Japan, United Kingdom, America, Canada, and 20 different countries around the world. But South Korea was another kettle of fish. So that's what got me interested in two things: interest rates and exchange rates.
Right.
So exchange rates was our dollar compared to the Korean dollar, and interest rates. We were paying at that time about 8% interest on our loans, right? And from what I gathered from the Mitsubishis of this world, who did a lot of work with South Korea, though they could get loans for 1%. Well, obviously, if you're going to get a loan for 1%, it's going to cost you less to produce, right?
Yeah.
So that's from that time onwards, it was always a vicious battle to try and move forward into the manufacturing businesses. And we decided, after a decade of being under phenomenal pressure to reduce our prices, we decided we were given the chance to manufacture in China. We were given that chance. But we also knew somebody else that had a wine industry in China. He was Australian and selling Australian wines to China. And he was in China 10 months out of 12. He had family breakdowns, marriage breakups, the whole works. We weren't going to go down that direction. So we decided to close down the doors in 2008. Virtually, basically from 2005, scaled down, because we had 80 employees. We scaled down to about 15 to 20. And then in 2008, before the financial crisis, we decided to get out completely. So you couldn't sell manufacturing businesses in Australia. So we just closed the gates, paid off the bills, and enjoyed life after manufacturing. But we couldn't enjoy it for too long because we were running out of money ourselves. So we had to do something different. So that's pretty well why we got out of manufacturing. Australians can't compete. We don't have the exchange rate. We don't have the interest rates available to us that a lot of other nations have.
Sounds a little timely in terms of what some businesses are feeling with regards to the tariff situation at the moment, but that's another podcast, another discussion. So you had this very successful business. External forces from a monetary fiscal perspective really did put a squeeze on you. So then you decided to close that very successful business. You had decades of experience. Why gold and silver?
Well, we had to look for something else. We had a very good mentor in Peter Daniels. He was he had a very large real estate business in South Australia. And he knew what was going on because he had world knowledge of the financial system. And he said back in 1997, Brian, Darryl, get out of manufacturing and start. And while you're doing that, start buying gold and silver, saving in gold and silver. So, yes, by 2008, when we did get out of manufacturing, we had a reasonable amount of savings in gold and silver. At that stage, we probably didn't know the exact reason, but our mentor, Peter Daniels, we believed in him, and we knew that he had a lot of credibility. So we just followed that rule. We started saving in gold and silver. But at that stage, we had no idea that we'd be starting a bullion ship in 2013.
Then things started to change. You started to probably understand the value of bullion, the increasing value, great store of value, and here we are today. So you have been dealing yourself personally, Brian, with clients from all over Australia, some also international clients. I'm really curious to know, what are some of the common issues or the common themes that your clients want to know from you or talk to you about?
Well, the difficult years were the first three because you come out from nowhere. You register your business as Good as Gold Australia, right? Nobody's heard of as Good as Gold Australia, let alone gold and silver. I mean, even today we are in a situation where there's only 0.5, 0.6% of the population that own gold and silver. But let's go back to 2013 and to up to 2016. Nobody knew of us. The trust wasn't there. Where do you store your gold and silver when you buy it? And in the initial days, it's just keep it at home in a safe place, right? And that wasn't. When we got to the bigger clients or people who want to spend a reasonable amount of money, they didn't want to have it stored at home. So the big two things was getting over the trust factor. Who were we? Who were we? And did we have a place where they could store any gold and silver that they bought? But the trust factor is probably the big one because they didn't know of us. We could be going on start up the business and 2 years later end up in the Caribbean enjoying ourselves. So we had to get over that. But I think being involved in engineering and manufacturing for 35, 40 years helped us along in that field. So we had an international credibility with our manufacturing products.
Would also potentially think that it's when you give clients your energy, your time, you answer every question, no questions, off limits, and you develop that rapport. I'm sure that builds trust between you and the client, doesn't it, Brian?
Look, absolutely. Once they knew our background and we just talked about the challenges of manufacturing back then, a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people understood. And we did talk about exchange rates and interest rates and these sorts of things. And, there were enough people that opened up their ears and listened to us. And eventually, we did small presentations, one-on-one presentations, party plan presentations. We did that. And eventually we had enough people to say, we're going to have a group meeting every month. So that's when it started to develop from about 2016 onwards.
And I would suspect that the last couple of years there's been an enormous increase due to the global pandemic and what's going on now financially, cost of living, a crisis situation. I'm wondering what significant changes you have understood that your clients have gone through. What are the changes from 2016 to now, Brian? Are they even more concerned about anything in particular?
I think they are. Yes, I do think they are because there are certain figures that come up in the news reports that just sort of don't add up. I will talk about the significant changes that I've seen in the last 5 years has been people who have sold investment properties and started off self-managed super funds rather than having super, which are being held by a super fund. It could be AMP. It could be any one company, financial company that is running your super fund. You are in the hands of the gods, or in other words, you are in the hands of a third party, right? If you run a self-managed super fund, you control 100% of what you buy. And investment property, look, it costs money to have a rental unit, not just the purchase of it, but make sure the maintenance of it. It just costs money. But the other thing that people are querying very in a big way is the inflation rate. Inflation is, I could go, this is a half-hour story and I have to basically commit to about 1 or 2 minutes. But the best thing for me to say about inflation is if you're at the supermarket, Woolworths, Coles, any one of the overseas ones, but I know Woolworths and Coles have been in my bloodline for long years, right?
Yeah.
But if you went there 12 months ago with $100, right, you had $100 that you had to spend at the supermarket, right? And now we move forward to today, and you buy those same amount of goods. Unfortunately, our government tells us that we have inflation of 2.5%. Well, that would mean that your new amount of goods from 12 months ago has only gone up $2.50, or the total bill being $102.50 would be your total bill. Now, I have asked everybody on this, and the average would be between $135 to $160 for the same amount of food and goods bought at Woolworths or Coles.
I'd
So
agree with you. Yeah.
2.5% doesn't cut it. It is a lie.
No.
100% lie, but it sounds good, right? It sounds good, but it doesn't cut any ice with me. And I do know that inflation is well over 10%, and the rate at which gold is going up, which is about 20% a year, you could say inflation's around 20%, but that's another story.
It is. I've seen those figures as well, Brian, and I actually have seen recent figures that gold's actually gone up more close to 35-40% in the last 14 months, and over 1,000%. The spot price of gold has increased over 1,000% in the last 20 odd years. But what I want to do is interesting, because you actually held up the dollar note. Do you mind holding that up? Because what I want to talk about now, just briefly, is, well, you've got the fiat currency, and there's a bar of gold. It's a 10-ounce bar of gold, and I also, in my hot little hand, have a 1 kilo bar of silver. So this is known as real money, gold and silver, real money. Gold has been around for 6,000 years. Absolutely real money, as we know, until recently, the modern monetary system that we have now, plus plastic dollars. So let's just have a very quick summary of the comparison, Brian, between real money, gold and silver, and fiat currency, which is not backed by anything. It should be, but it's also determined by a government or central bank, and by the decree of the public. So we know what $100 technically means. What's your description between real money and fiat currency?
As you would well know by now, that I don't have too much fiat currency in the bank account. I only have it there to pay bills with, and that's about it. I replenish my bank account about every 3 months, because I pay bills every 3 months. But let's have a look at the difference between currency and money in a simple way. So currency, which is what the government edict is asking us to use, right, is a piece of plastic polymer. Right, in the United States, it's still paper, but it's plastic polymer, and that's got $100 written on it. All right. Now, that plastic polymer can be $100, it could be $50, it could be $20, it could be $10 or $5. Now, I know enough about manufacturing and printing that it costs exactly the same to produce that 100 as it does a $5 bill. So, what's going on? It's the same price, but it's valued, so-called, by the government, $100 for this one and $5, I think it's for pink ones, $5 bills. So they can produce these currencies for 0 cents, right? 0 cents. I'm talking about the cost of one of these plastic polymer notes would be less than 2 cents to produce. So those are produced at less than 2 cents, but valued at $100. When you have a look at gold, and you handed up your big bars of gold, I'll just hand a gold coin here, right? That's 1 ounce of gold. And to get gold out of the ground, just to get it out of the ground, for the mining companies to drill the holes, to bring it up to the surface and purify it to around about 90%, right? Basically this sort of thing here. This is a little gold nugget. That came out of the ground too. But it wasn't sitting on top of the surface. They're not spread everywhere to go and pick up like seashells. This had to have drilled holes, shovels and diggers and everything else to get this piece of gold out of the ground. Now, the cost of doing that in Australia, getting that gold out of the ground, is roughly per ounce $1,900 to $2,000.
US, right?
And yet that 1 ounce of gold at $5,000 today is 50 of those. And you've seen printing presses they run automatically. You'd be able to produce 50 of those in around about probably 10 seconds.
Yep.
So that's physically the difference between a country using currency as against gold as money. And that is why the debt levels of today are humongous. I can give you a description. I brought this along with me. Money throughout the ages has to be seven. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 7. I just had to make sure of that one. Money has to be seven things. Unit of account. Now that is a unit of account. No problem there,
Yes.
right? But
Yes.
money has to be a unit of account, a medium of exchange. $100 bill does that as well. Portable. Yes, gold's portable. Silver's portable. Durable. Yes, both metals are durable. Divisible. Yes, we can have 1 kilos, 10 ounces, 1 grams, all that sort of thing. So it's all divisible. Fungible, which is interchangeable. Gold and silver does that. Store of value over long periods of time. That is money. Is that a store of value over long periods of time? Absolutely not. We just pointed out that $100 for food is now $130 for food. So that's not a store of value, but the government wants us to use it. The reason why governments want us to use it, because I'm afraid to say they pay the pension plans down the track, and they believe that if they use gold and silver, right, as money, they wouldn't be able to do it, or it would make the government look totally foolish in how money was spent. Okay,
Yep.
so this is that's one of that's the reasons what between currency and money. One is produced in seconds, the other money is produced by the natural earth's elements out of the ground. Now, the reason why we don't have seashells as money, there's trillions of them, right? Gold and silver, right? It's I think the sum is there's never been any more. Right now, is with the gold and silver, gold out of the ground, sorry, has been something like 300,000 ton. Sounds a lot,
Yes.
but
Yep.
interesting enough, for all the gold that's out of the ground, it's been dug out of the ground since the centuries. We're talking about the Egyptians, Romans, Greeks, and whatever. It is less than 1 ounce of gold per man, woman, and child on this earth today. That's how much gold there is in that's come out, and that is very, very minute. So, yeah, look, you've got gold coins, you've got gold bars. These are ones that we sell at Good as Gold. You know, these are Perth Mint. These are the gold coin is what we produce, what we've got ourselves. It's an AG product. And you've also got the silver coins there. We produce
Beautiful.
those, right? And
Yep.
we call them freedom coins because there's a statement around the edge of the coins about freedom, and there's only one way you can enjoy your freedom, and that is be outside of a system that unfortunately produces these things, but they aren't worth a cracker. They just aren't worth a cracker. They're inflated by at least 10% every year, so they're not a good store of value.
Brian, that's a fantastic comparison and a really great understanding into the difference between real money and the purpose of real money, gold and silver, and obviously the fiat currency. So I agree with you that one of the big changes, just to kind of recap, we're almost at the end of this podcast, so I want to pick your brains one more time. But just to recap, so what we're finding is that one of the behavior changes is that people are looking for solid investments, and gold and silver is top tier, world-class investment, hands down, and I know you would agree completely there. It's very easy to purchase. You're running one of the most trustworthy bullion companies in Australia and growing. So we're giving a solution of, well, anyone can contact you or myself, but obviously for you to deal with clients, it would be an amazing opportunity. What would you say are your top 3 suggestions for anyone in this wonderful audience that really need to know why should they invest in purchasing gold and silver for their financial future, Brian?
Okay, I know we've got to keep this to a minimum in time frame. I'm going to just go back one step and because this is one question that always comes up, right? And before I go to those 3 suggestions, which are very important, the one question that comes up is, what's the difference between spot price and the retail price? Because when you go to our website, you'll see the spot prices on the screen. The retail prices are different. So spot price is to get this gold nugget out of the ground, right, and get it purified to 100%. Okay, so that's to get it out of the ground. Once it gets to this level or this level, is what we call, it has to be refined to bullion stage, which is 99.99%. So there's a cost in getting it to bullion grade. If we don't refine it, you could be buying something that's not 99.9% purity, and you must be doing that to have bullion. From the refiner, it then goes to the wholesaler, which is ourselves, and it costs money to produce that product, freight that product, and insure that product. Nothing moves in gold and silver without insurance. So you got 3 costs there. Then the last little cost, and it's a very, 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 very tiny bit, is our commission. We've got to stay in business. We've got to make a profit. We learned a long time ago, if you don't make a profit, there's only one way you're doing it. That's a loss. So you have to make a profit. So our little tiny bit is less than 1%. You know, in gold, it's so small, it's incredible. But less than 1% profit. You add all those 4 costs involved from the spot price, and then you get your retail price. So let's move on. The 3 suggestions. Most people may not know of the name of Alistair McLeod. He is an English economist, and he is our advisor at As Good as Gold Australia. And he writes regularly every week in a area called Substack. It's a typical letter that he
channel platform.
Substack channel. I read his one this morning, and it is absolutely brilliant. And I suggest for everybody here to actually sign up and read his material. But this is what he said. He said, within 1 or 2 years, right, Russia and China are developing right now with the BRIC nations. Russia and China will go onto a gold standard.
Wow.
What that means is their yuan and their rubles will be backed by gold. Now, let's get down to some real thought patterns here. Darren and I talk about having enough gold that you can retire on for the rest of your life with a really nice income. Now, you may not have this amount of gold available to you now, but I'll guarantee you, if you start putting it away, and that's where self-managed super fund will come in, start putting it away, you could get to this point very, very quickly. So this is what we say. If you have $1 million in precious metal, gold, silver, a bit of both, doesn't matter, $1 million in precious metal, and it's going up right now, a minimum of 20%. I do not exaggerate. Carmel will tell you that. I do not exaggerate. For the last year, it went up 36%. It's already up 25% for this year, and it's got another 20% to go. So we can easily say it will probably do another 36 to 40% this year. I work on 20%, so I'm covering myself, right? But a 20% growth rate, and the longer you get from the point of when we went off the gold standard, 1971, the further you move out, the more it goes up in value. And that's why at 53 years past 1971, it's going up at 36%. So 20% on $1 million is what? It's 200,000. So you can retire with $1 million in gold and silver at 20%, because that's what it's gone up. You've bought it for $1 million. In 1 year's time, it'll be 1.2 million. That's 200,000 extra. You can take that 200,000. You've still got your $1 million earning your 20%. You wait another year, there's another 200,000. Wait another year, another 200,000. Each year, you have the capability to retire and live on as a retirement 200K a year. And I tell you what, that's a little bit better than the pension. Now,
Sounds
what
great, Brian. Absolutely.
Yeah. What if you don't have $1 million? Let's have a look. Let's halve it. Absolutely halve it. Can you survive on 100,000? Because if you're surviving on the pension now, I'm sure you could survive on 100,000. So your retirement would be $100,000 a year. But this is the kicker. Alistair said, within 1 to 2 years, and I'm looking at it and I think probably more like 2, and it could go out to 3, but who cares? You're still saving in gold and silver. So it doesn't matter when it comes, right? You're still saving in gold and silver. So if Alistair is saying 2 years or 3 years, right, to actually for Russia and China to develop a gold standard, what it means is your gold, whatever you've bought from this day forward and to whenever they bring in the gold standard, the gold, to have a gold standard, you have to change the price of gold. There is not enough gold out there for 8 million people at the price that it is today. Nowhere near the price. So talking to Jim Rickards, talking to other, obviously, Alistair McLeod and other people that we talk to, they're going to have to revalue the price of gold somewhere between 5 and 10 times whatever price you're paying right now. So let's have a look at this. If you've got $1 million in gold, it would immediately go to 5 million on the low side and 10 million on the upside. If you've got 10 million in gold, because this is after they revalue gold, and they have to, guaranteed. If you've got 10 million in gold at that point and you invest it with your bank, which will be, the bank is now on a gold standard, right? If you invest it at the average percentage rate of 5%, you got $500,000 a year coming in. Let's halve that. Let's go back to that 5 million. So they only raised the price of gold 5 times, right? So 1 million now is 5 million. 5 million at 5% is $250,000 a year. You can't go wrong. Absolutely, you cannot go wrong of having the majority of all your investments from this point onwards in physical gold and silver. You know, I haven't got all your eggs in one basket. Your gold and silver is money. How can you have too much money? How can you have your eggs in too many eggs in one basket? You're using your gold and silver as money. You can never have too many eggs in one basket under that principle. So, yeah, we have been told, well, there's no news reports about, or in the Western world, about what's going to happen.
No, Brian.
I can tell you right now, this is about to happen. And I feel very comfortable in saying that if you start up a self-managed super fund, if you haven't got one already, because it's very simple. It's actual fact, we've got a special on this month. But we have a special on this month that will cost you no more than about $400 to set up a self-managed super fund. Right? Using the right accountants, we've got them here, no problem. So under these case scenarios, there's nothing stopping you from taking your money out of a standard superannuation fund, right? Put it into your self-managed super fund and buy as much gold and silver as you possibly can do. You probably might leave 10% in cash. So 90% gold, silver, 10% in cash, and your superannuation is now starting to work for you at a minimum of 20%. So
that's such a compelling argument that you've really made that crystal clear. I love your passion and your direction as well. We need to I'll do a lot more research personally, but as you mentioned, Alistair McLeod, he is a globally renowned economist. So he's made that prediction recently regarding the new Russian and Chinese backed currency on gold.
If people Google Alistair McLeod, they can get on the Substack channel, and it's his latest Substack piece of writing.
Absolutely. Brian, that's been tremendous. And of course, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, you are in the As Good as Gold office based in Adelaide. But anyone can call. You can go have a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting if anyone is in and around Adelaide. The self-managed super fund, well, that is an incredible opportunity. And I obviously asked what one of your 3 suggestions, saying that a self-managed super fund where you're in control, it's your money, your retirement plan, And it's absolutely essential that you do take Brian's suggestion and really just consider and have a complimentary consultation with Brian. He's an absolute legend. He is an expert, and I'm sure you will be very, very pleasantly surprised, and also and how easy it is, because that's the other part of it. Trustworthy, easy. It's holding its value. It is for your financial future, not just yours but your children's and the next generation. So Brian, you've been absolutely tremendous. Thank you so much. I'll leave on the screen shortly all the details where anyone can actually contact you. Awesome to talk to you. Take care.
No problem. Thank you, Carmel.
Thank you. Wow, Brian was amazing to speak with. We definitely had a great conversation there about the value of bullion. I still have the gold in my hand, and also self-managed super funds. So if you'd like to get in touch with Brian Paynes, the co-founder of As Good as Gold Australia, the third largest and fastest growing bullion dealer in Australia, Brian will spend as much time as possible. He truly is a wonderful person and great insights and wonderful passion to guide you towards your financial freedom, your financial future. I look forward to seeing you at the next Precious Metals, Precious You podcast. I'll say that again because I was just so excited speaking with Brian. Precious Metals, Precious You podcast. Look after yourselves, especially your precious selves, and I will see you next time. Take care.
Thank you for listening. All information in this podcast is general in nature and not constituted as financial advice. Looking forward to welcoming you to the next episode of Precious Metals, Precious You. It's all